why are we here today? And I'll actually make this very personal. Why are you here today? Why did you carve out an hour of your time to learn about this thing what we call faith-driven impact investing? And my guess is that someplace at the core, there's something around that parable of the talents. You've heard all of us reference it, that the parable of the talents really talks about whatever the five-talent servant that invested to maximize the return for the kingdom, and with the desire of hearing, well done, good and faithful servant. I think that at our core, all of us that are believers would really like to hear that well done, good and faithful servant. And if you keep reading in Matthew 25, the very next parable is talking about whatever you've done for the least of these, you've done for me. So maybe some of you are here just thinking about, what can I really be doing for the least of these and using my talents, but how do I do that? So let me tell you a little bit about how the Lord has led our journey at Talented. We provide a way for you to invest in a portfolio of faith-driven growth stage businesses that create jobs to bring hope and transform lives. And that's a mouthful, but it really means that we've found a way to create a pool of really exciting companies, and we'll be talking about just a few of those in a minute. When I go to the least of these part of the parables, and we look at what you heard Jeff say, you've also heard Jeff John say this, the global situation in Africa and the developing world is really severe in many ways, but there are 2 billion people that live without good jobs on less than $3 a day. And so if you really want to understand what the least of these look like, we can take you to show you what communities in these countries look like. Those of us that have been wired for business just don't believe that fundamentally giving is a way to solve poverty and economic development in a scalable and sustainable way. So we need a different way to do that. So let me look at the next slide and explain to you a way that we think is the kingdom-minded way of using our talents well. And that is, again, I'm going to concentrate on Africa. That's where we've been focused to launch Talent. And it's hard for most of us to believe that in Africa, there will be 450 million people entering the workforce in the next 15 years. I'm going to say that number again because most people can't imagine. 450 million entering. Forget the number of people that may be in poverty today. That's the magnitude of the population bulge coming through the pipeline in Africa. The World Bank and others would tell us that at most they can foresee 100 million real jobs, that is with a paycheck coming from an employer. So that would leave 350 million, or the population of the US, or underemployed. And you think about poverty, human trafficking, refugee flight, civil strife, terrorism, all of the things that can happen from hopelessness and lack of jobs, poverty. And you heard Jeff mention this, that the truth is, well, what does it take to actually create jobs? It's these small, medium enterprises. That 80% of all new jobs that will be created are likely to be created in small, medium enterprises, businesses between 10 and 250 employees. But the capital available to companies in the developing world, in Africa, is something between $1 and $4 trillion of missing capital. This thing called the missing middle, because traditional finance, risk-adjusted market rate returns, putting money into these kind of businesses in Africa typically doesn't flow at scale. So that's what we're trying to address through Talented. Let me just, I don't have the time today to go through sort of all of the stories. These are just 4 of the companies that we have in our portfolio at Talented. We started in Burundi, a country that was dramatically impacted by the genocide that hit Rwanda next door, and Burundi. Have a fabulous company there that is bringing hope and life to smallholder farmers, already serving almost 3,000 of them. The second company here, Educori Montessori School, you wouldn't know it, but that picture of the girl in that photo was an 11-year-old, started there at 18 months, and she's just published her first book in the midst of the pandemic in Kenya, in Nairobi, chain of 5 schools, looking to double that over the coming years. I'm going to skip Contegra for 1 minute and just say Masaka Creamery attracted us. It's in Rwanda. Half of their 41 employees are deaf. Everybody in the company speaks sign language, but it's a phenomenal business. They're sourcing milk from 2,000 dairy farmers on their way to tripling that business in the coming years. Good financial business, great social impact, and delivering a product, yogurt, full of protein for a country where a third of all youth are protein deficient, so mental and physically stunted. And Contegra, I'll just end with this particular story. Those of you on at the beginning saw the Duncan video, the story of transformation in a farmer's life who was living in a mud hut and couldn't educate his kids, feed them well, house them well, or really give them hope for a future. He's connected now into the global economies by growing flowers. Those flowers behind the gal in the upper part of that photo are a chrysanthemum type flower that creates an organic pesticide. That business is already serving over 3,000 farmers. They've trained 8,000. We together believe they could reach 100,000 farmers. Every one of those farmers can make $80 to $100 per month in income from growing an acre of flowers. That's the equivalent of a minimum wage job, and they're partnering with a World Vision spinoff, Root to Fruit, to bring biblical worldview into these farming communities, not just economic vitality. So just as we've all talked about today, we'd like to remind everyone that your donor-advised fund capital can be invested to achieve kingdom impact with financial, spiritual, and social returns. You can use charitable donations and your mind as a for-profit investor. Bring the two together in any of the things that the three of us have talked about today. So you can invest, you can donate, you can deliver huge kingdom impact through the resources that the Lord has entrusted you with. For those of us old enough to have seen Jimmy Stewart in the movie It's a Wonderful Life, we just all encourage you to find a way to use your talents to serve the least of these with the goal of hearing, "Well done, good and faithful servant."